Hello and welcome to this delicious Thai red curry soup episode. Don't worry, we'll be moving over to my kitchen momentarily, but I figured I would film the intro of this vlog here in my cozy living room. Just a few minutes ago, I got back from my local grocery store. I had to pick up a few last items for this recipe. Since it's been so cold here in Minneapolis, I decided I was going to cook myself a huge, delicious pot of Thai red curry soup. I'm gonna be going mostly off of my uncle's recipe cookbook. I got this for Christmas. So the backstory of this cookbook is that my uncle, who is now retired, used to host these holiday soup tasting parties for his coworkers. And something he would also do is print off and bind and gift to his guests copies of this cookbook. As someone who eats vegan virtually 100% of the time, I love the challenge of taking a recipe that isn't vegan and making it so. That's the case with this recipe. It's actually a red curry chicken soup. The only ingredient in this recipe that isn't vegan is the chicken. That was the fun part of grocery shopping for this recipe, because I got to go through the refrigerated section and the freezer frozen food section of my local grocery store and take a look at all the meat substitutes that they have. One thing that I noticed about this recipe as I was skimming through it, it's not very precise with how much water, how much rice. You kind of just eyeball it. At least I know that's what my uncle does when he's cooking. I am going to use my uncle's recipe as the foundation with all the ingredients, but I also was doing a little bit of research online and I came across this very similar looking red curry soup recipe. It's on this website called Damn Delicious. The recipe has phenomenal reviews. It gets 4.9 stars on average out of 677 ratings. I think that just about covers it for everything that I wanted to preview and go over for this recipe. Without further ado, let's walk 10 feet over to my kitchen and get started. These are all of the ingredients that I'll be preparing and eventually putting together to make this curry soup. I'll go through each of the ingredients super quickly and then I'll give you kind of an overview of my plan for what's going to be going on my stovetop. We've got 1 head of organic cauliflower. I'll be using this entire head of cauliflower. There's 1 yellow onion in this recipe. I'll be cutting it up and sauteing it in the Dutch oven soup pot. The garlic is something that isn't listed in my uncle's recipe book, but instead was on the Damn Delicious recipe. There's also some green onions going in here, also known as scallions. This was a little moment of inspiration that I had. Not so much inspiration, but I guess more utility. I've had this frozen bag of broccoli florets sitting in my freezer. Now is as good a time as ever to break into this bag. I'll probably use half of the bag. I don't know if I'll use the full bag. We'll see how the soup pot is filling up as I go. I'll be using this entire, I don't know if you call it a tube. That sounds kind of gross given that it's a meat substitute. Anyways, I'll be using this entire container, let's call it that, of Impossible sausage. Over here, I have a bag of white rice. This is gonna be cooking away kind of off to the side on my stovetop while I get the vegetables going and the sauce going. I'll be sauteing the onion and the garlic cloves in this olive oil. The recipe calls for salt and pepper to taste. I don't usually use a lot of pepper, but I do love my food salty. However, the soup base is quite salty itself. I love this brand better than Bouillon. That little heart-shaped V indicates that it's vegan friendly. And then for the beautiful sauce, I'll be throwing in this can of coconut milk. I go for the light coconut milk because natural coconut milk is so high in saturated fat. This is the red curry paste. I believe I'll be using 3 tablespoons of this bad boy. There's some cilantro that you put in here. Just a couple last things. There's this very large container of lime juice. I love the tangy flavor that lime juice gives to really spicy dishes like this one. Last but not least, another spice jar. This one is ginger powder. I'm thinking I'll start with the rice. I'll just get the water ready, throw in the rice, and have that getting cooked up and ready to go. Then I'll move on to slicing up the onion, the garlic cloves, the veggies basically that are gonna be cooking in the oil. And then there's a cute little saucepan. I've got them all ready to go on my stovetop, and the little saucepan is gonna have the curry paste and the coconut milk. I'm realizing now I took a quick glance at the recipe and there's one thing that I forgot to grab. I'll be using this tamari. It's brewed soy sauce. It's gluten-free, which I prefer as well. I use this in my fried rice episode in case you're interested in watching that. I'll link it up here. So that's everything in terms of the ingredients. Before I forget, I'm gonna get my apron put on, also courtesy of Uncle Michael. Cool. All right, well, I'm gonna get the rice all measured out and get going with the chopping of the vegetables. Okay, the veggies are pretty much all ready to go. I've got my garlic and onions in this bowl. The cauliflower is all cut up and on this plate, and then I cut up 3 scallions or green onions and have them on this cutting board. I think I'll just put them on top of the cauliflower. The big reveal is just about to happen, which is this guy. So I'm gonna undo this container and check out this Impossible sausage. I hope I didn't let it thaw too much because this stuff is just mush. Just think of this as sausage meat. What I'm gonna do is just migrate everything over to the stovetop and the countertops on either side of it so you can see everything that's going on. That's mission accomplished. I have the finished soup right here. It's still very hot, so I put it down on some dish towels. I also have the cooked white rice here. I'm gonna dish this up first. There's the rice all ready to go, and now all I need to do is ladle in some of this red curry soup. The Impossible meat turned out pretty well. I would bet that if I served this to anyone and they didn't know it was Impossible beef, they would completely think it is actual beef. Man, that is so tempting. You could get so many more people to eat the recommended amount of vegetables every day if you got them to eat vegetables like this. I should also mention too, really quickly, before I say goodbye, this recipe is definitely customizable. For example, on the Damn Delicious recipe that I was cross-checking with my uncle's recipe, it does call for bell peppers, and I hate bell peppers, so I just omitted those and decided to add some other veggies that I personally love. Thank you, foodies, for tuning in to this episode. I hope you enjoyed, once again, watching me make a delicious vegan and gluten-free recipe. Feel free to leave a comment below if you'd like me to make a certain recipe, even if it's not vegan, even if it's not gluten-free. There are ways to make things work. In the meantime, take care. I hope you get to enjoy some tasty food yourself, maybe even make this recipe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!